Long before anyone knew her name, before her hands ever touched fabric or books, Elena was only a shadow among shadows. The village where she was born seemed frozen in time, an island of forgotten people, wrapped in hunger and silence. Children grew up too fast there, not because they wanted to, but because poverty stole their childhoods the way the cold wind stole warmth from their bones. Her earliest memories were not of toys or lullabies, but of her mother's tired eyes watching the fire die too soon, of her father's back bent under the weight of stones and bricks. She remembered nights when the cupboard was empty and her brothers cried themselves to sleep, their thin ribs rising and falling under patched blankets. On those nights, Elena would press her own stomach, fighting the hunger, whispering, "Maybe tomorrow." But tomorrow often came with the same emptiness. Still, in the middle of all this, Elena carried something strange and precious, a stubborn spark of hope. She did not know where it came from, only that it lived inside her like a secret flame. When the other children mocked her for her ragged dress, she held her head a little higher. When hunger gnawed at her, she turned her eyes to the sky. The stars became her friends. She spoke to them as if they could hear. "One day," she would whisper, "I'll leave this place. One day, I'll make a life that doesn't hurt." The stars said nothing back, of course, but their light never left her, even in the darkest winters. This is the story of that girl. The girl who carried stars in her eyes. Once upon a time, in a small forgotten village nestled between two gray mountains, lived a girl named Elena. She was only 16 when the world had already taught her more about hardship than most people learned in a lifetime. Her family's house was barely more than 4 wooden walls patched with metal sheets. The roof leaked whenever it rained, and in winter the icy wind sneaked through the cracks, biting at their skin as if to remind them how poor they truly were. Her father was a laborer, often away for days, carrying bricks at construction sites in towns far away. Her mother washed clothes for neighbors, her hands cracked and red from the cold river water she worked in. Elena had 3 younger brothers, always hungry, always fighting for scraps. She, being the oldest, often gave up her portion of bread so they could have a little more. Despite it all, Elena had something rare, something no poverty could steal. In her eyes lived a quiet fire, a dream, a stubborn belief that life had to be more than endless struggle. Every night, while her brothers slept, she would step outside, barefoot on the dirt, and look up at the stars. She whispered to them, "One day I'll leave this village. One day I'll find a way to shine too." School was supposed to be free, but Elena often couldn't go. She had to work, cleaning, carrying water, helping her mother wash clothes. When she did attend, the other children mocked her torn dress and worn-out shoes. Teachers sometimes looked at her with pity, sometimes with irritation, as though poverty were her fault. Yet Elena loved learning. She borrowed old books from a kind librarian in the nearest town, walking 2 hours to get there. She read them at night under a candle stub, her face glowing with determination. Stories about people who started with nothing but built empires filled her with courage. "Why not me?" she would whisper. Still, hunger was a louder voice than hope. There were days when she felt her body so weak she thought she might faint while carrying buckets of water. There were nights when she cried into her pillow, too tired to believe in dreams. And then, her life began to change. One chilly autumn morning, Elena went to the market to sell berries she had picked in the forest. It was her only chance to earn a few coins for bread. She stood there, her basket small and half empty, while others sold fresh vegetables, clothes, and meat. People barely noticed her. But one young man did. He was tall, dressed simply but neatly, with kind eyes that seemed to notice things others ignored. His name was Adrian. "Are those for sale?" he asked, pointing to her basket. "Yes," she answered shyly, lowering her gaze. He bought all her berries at once, far more than he needed, and when she tried to give him change, he shook his head. "Keep it," he said with a smile. Elena was stunned. No one had ever shown her such kindness. Days later, she met him again in the market. This time he asked her name. They spoke, little by little, and soon it became a habit. Adrian was from a nearby town, the son of a modest merchant. Unlike others, he never mocked her clothes or her rough hands. He listened, truly listened, when she spoke about her dreams. One day he asked, "What do you want most in life, Elena?" She hesitated, afraid he might laugh, but finally whispered, "I want to learn. I want to build something that matters. I don't want to stay poor forever." Instead of laughing, his eyes lit up. "Then you must never stop. Knowledge is the only treasure no one can steal from you." From then on, Adrian began lending her books and teaching her what he knew about trade, money, and the world beyond their valley. They would sit under an old oak tree by the river, talking until the sun went down. For the first time, Elena felt seen, not as a poor girl, but as someone capable of greatness. Years passed, and their bond grew stronger. With Adrian's encouragement, Elena started small. She gathered herbs and made simple remedies to sell. She learned to sew and created scarves and gloves that villagers began to buy. Adrian helped her sell them in town, where people paid more. Slowly, coin by coin, she saved. She reinvested, bought more fabric, created better designs. Adrian's family, seeing her determination, offered her a small space in their shop. Elena worked tirelessly, often through the night. She experimented with patterns, making clothes not only useful but beautiful. Her reputation grew. People began traveling from other villages to buy the girl's creations. It was not easy. Many doubted her, mocked her for daring to dream. There were failures, losses, nights when she wanted to give up. But every time, Adrian reminded her, "Remember the stars you carry in your eyes. Don't let them fade." As they worked side by side, friendship deepened into something more. Adrian admired her courage. Elena trusted his loyalty. He never tried to overshadow her dreams, only supported them. And she, in turn, showed him that kindness and persistence could turn dust into gold. One evening, under that same oak tree by the river, Adrian took her hand. "Elena," he said softly, "we've built something together. But more than that, I can't imagine a life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming joy. She remembered the nights of hunger, the cruel laughter of classmates, the endless cold winters. And she realized she had made it through. She had not only survived but found love, dignity, and purpose. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling, "1,000 times yes." Their wedding was small but beautiful. The villagers, who once pitied her, now looked at her with admiration. Elena wore a dress she had sewn herself, simple yet elegant, a symbol of her journey. Years later, Elena and Adrian expanded their business into a thriving company. They built a larger house for her family, so her mother no longer had to wash clothes in icy rivers, and her brothers could go to school. Elena never forgot where she came from. She opened a foundation to help poor children learn skills, just as Adrian had once taught her. And every night, when she looked at the stars, she whispered to the little girl she once was, "You made it,